The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, and welcome to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. My name is Joni Siegel, and I'm the host for this podcast. My husband, Steve Siegel, is the founder and producer for the podcast. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a thumbs up or give us a 5-star rating. That way Google finds us, and when people go to search for podcasts about addiction, they'll find us. And we like to think that our messages are pretty supportive for those suffering from addiction or those with loved ones suffering from addiction. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and subscribe to our channel. If you ring the bell, you'll get notified whenever we put up a new episode, and also give us a thumbs up on our episodes there. Once again, it just helps people find us. Google will point to us when they search. Today's episode is episode number 263, and today we're going to be interviewing a gentleman named Joshua Villareal. Joshua was a careered musician. He was very successful in many capacities. He once owned a recording studio with Gordon Raphael, who was the producer of The Strokes and Regina Spektor. And then he got his own record deal. He worked on his debut album with Anthony Braun Perry and Scott Montoya, both from the band The Growlers. He was well on his way. He had met and worked with many successful musicians and others in the entertainment business. But there was one thing that he did not take into account, and that was his addiction to heroin. And heroin led him down the path of so many others to major destruction in his life. So let's talk to Josh and find out not only about how this came about, but how he got clean and sober, what his point of no return was. Josh Villareal, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story today. We know that when people such as yourself share their stories, that it resonates with people. And so really appreciate you taking the time, because I know you're at work. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Joni and Steve.
Absolutely. So give me your background. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? How did you first get introduced to drugs?
So I'm from California. I'm from Los Angeles originally. My mom moved out there when she was 18 to chase the big movie dream, and wound up pregnant twice over, which is pretty common over there. And my father left when I think I was about 3. So didn't really have a male figure around. My mom worked a lot and also drank a lot. My grandfather on her side was also an alcoholic. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, my dad's dad, he died of cirrhosis just a couple of years ago. Alcoholism and addiction is pretty prevalent in my family. And then growing up in Los Angeles, it's so, I guess, widely accepted, and so the norm there. And it's also socially acceptable for young people to, really young people, to get into drugs and alcohol, pretty early on. And so I did, without a lot of guidance and direction, with all those, environmental and external factors and all that sort of thing. I just was kind of doomed from the start.
Understood. But how old were you when you started either drinking, or did you do drinking first or drugs first?
I started drinking first. I was about 9 the first time I started smoking cigarettes and pot when I was about 9, and then I started drinking when I was 11. And the first time I got drunk, I was 11, and I remember I was so hungover the next day, I thought I'd never do it again. But not too long after that, I did
Famous
it again.
Last words. Yeah.
Yeah. Again and again. So
9 years old. Okay, that makes me just a little bit scary. My oldest granddaughter is turning 9 on Saturday, so just makes me a little bit scary, but yep, I know she's not going to go that route just because I know what kind of environment she's in, but it makes me kind of sad that you were exposed to it at that young an age, Anyway, so obviously you didn't start with heroin, so talk to us about how it progressed, what it was like going to school. I'm assuming you did a lot of this while you were in school as well.
Yeah. When I was younger, I was kind of an outcast. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was not generally typically somebody you would call cool when I was younger. I'm still probably not somebody, you'd call cool, but yeah, when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of friends at all. And that was kind of hard for me. I wanted attention and I liked attention. But it was sort of awkward. I was overweight, kind of greasy. I had acne. I didn't have a lot of friends. So the few friends I did have were sort of like me. They were outcasts, social misfits, and they drank and did drugs. And so that's kind of how we, sort of kept company. We had common interests, music and drugs. And so I also skateboarded, and a lot of my friends were skateboarders, and it was the same thing. And a lot of them got injured and were getting prescribed painkillers because at that time, everybody was getting painkillers for, whatever. And so that's kind of how that started.
So how old were you then?
I was 12 when I took Vicodin for the first time, and I'll never forget that. Yeah.
You're so young.
Yeah.
You were so young. Sorry, I'm a mom.
Mhm.
It hurts. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and I'm a father. My son just turned 12. So, and I think about how he's 12. Yeah. He's autistic though, fortunately. A lot of people think that he's got type 1 diabetes and he has autism. He's pretty high functioning, but the one good, really great thing about that for me, above all else, is that he doesn't he has no interest in those types of things, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you're 12 years old, took Vicodin.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
I get the first time I took Vicodin, it was, I always tell people it felt like God wrapped his entire body around me and melted into me. I just had this warm feeling, the sensation that everything was going to be okay. Even things that were never going to be okay, they'd be okay, sort of thing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, warm and fuzzy for sure.
Yeah.
And then, so what happened then? You were in junior high, right? Or still in elementary?
Yeah.
Junior high.
No,
okay.
yeah, I was in 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade.
Okay.
And that it wasn't really sort of I didn't have easy access to them quite yet. It took a little while. I had a friend DJ 2 years later. He was actually a sponsored skateboarder. So he skateboarded, basically semi-professionally pretty early on in his life. But he was getting injured a lot too. And again, this is before, everything that's going on now is going on. So he was getting Oxycontin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, whatever. And, he started sharing them. So when I was 14, my addiction took off, in a really big way. And I can remember even it got to a point where he expressed concern. He was giving me the pills, but he was like, you're starting to scare me a little bit and irritate me because I would, do ridiculous things. Not too ridiculous, but I would just beg. I'd be like, come on, I'll give you $30 for one, whatever. And it was just, it got bad pretty quick.
Where were you getting the money?
All different ways. I worked at the skate park that he was sponsored at.
Okay.
So, and then I did, the owner was a contractor and roofer during that was his day job. He owned a skate park as an investment. But yeah, I worked for him too under the table. So he would pay me cash every day. So sort of easy access. The other thing was DJ's girlfriend, her mom had something going on with her back, a herniated disc. So she had quite a bit of large quantities of painkillers as well. And he would get them from her and, share them with me. And that's how, we fed our addiction for a little while too.
Understood. You were in high school now.
Yeah. Yep. 14. So I was a freshman.
Okay. Did you graduate high school?
I did. I graduated early, 3 years early.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you must have done okay academically, even though you were doing drugs.
Yeah. My memory's really good. I retain things pretty, I have a really great memory. I can remember things that I see or numbers, so schoolwork was not a problem. Getting along with teachers and, like social situations, that was kind of where things were difficult. So I started getting kicked out of school when I was a freshman. And by the time I was in 10th grade, I think I'd been thrown out of like 4 or 5 schools. So what my mom did was she pulled me out one day, and she had somehow managed to get it set up where rather than, go through school for the next 3 years, she spoke to somebody at the Board of Education for the state and someone else. And what I basically had to do was take every single test that, they were essentially going to give to me and do a series of things. And when I was done, I had to take like a final test type of thing. And, I got to graduate and get my diploma. It wasn't a GED, it was a diploma. The reason why I graduated early was because I wanted to get it done and out of the way. I wanted to spend more time playing music and skateboarding and hanging out with friends. And they sort of, let me know early on, like, yeah, this is at your own pace. So if you get this done tomorrow, you can graduate tomorrow. Obviously, it took me about 6 months, but yeah, by the time I was 15, I was completely graduated with my diploma and way too much time on my hands.
Wow. So, and you were already into music, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Playing your own music.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from there, tell me what happened after that. You're done with school. You're 15 years old.
I was 15. I spent a lot of time practicing guitar and piano. And, my mom didn't really have a lot of money at that time. So like Christmas for us came on during tax season. We didn't get a Christmas, Christmas Day. We'd have to wait till like January, February, March, which is cool, because she would always get us this one really big, nice present for being patient. And so what I did for a long time was I would ask for an instrument every year or something to go with an instrument. And yeah, that's how I spent my time in a positive way. The downside was that, with all that free time and my mom at work, I had, a lot of time to get into trouble and get up to no good. So started drinking a lot more when I was 15. I started doing, that was when I first started doing cocaine as well. By the time I was 16, I think I'd lost I went from being 220 pounds to 145 pounds.
Oh my God.
And yeah.
How did you get introduced to cocaine? Where did that come about?
I was just at a party one night, and, before that, I was just kind of, I didn't even consider taking painkillers as such a bad thing because it was for pain and for injuries. And, my friends and I were always getting hurt. And I didn't have a doctor prescribing them to me, but,
But it was prescribed, therefore it's got to be,
right.
Yeah.
I rationalized it, yeah. So, but yeah, we're at a party and someone had some, and I don't know, I just got curious. And, a couple of my friends were like, no way, that's crazy. Why would we ever do that? And I was like, well, I don't know. It looks kind of fun, so I did it, and boy, was it fun. But so then that started. And that was the first time in my life that I probably not only developed a pretty serious problem, but it became so prevalent that I had my first bout of isolation and friends and, people not wanting to talk to me anymore or speak to me because I became kind of weird. And, because cocaine makes you really, erratic and sort of, I guess, flighty,
paranoid,
especially if you've been up
too,
for,
I think.
Paranoid. Yeah. So I got to this place where my best friends didn't want to hang out with me anymore. I was still playing music, but I got kicked out of the first band I was ever in. And it was kind of a mess. So I stopped probably, I think the last straw came when I got really drunk one night and I spent a ridiculous amount of money to get to my coke dealer because I was in another city, at a party, and, lost my bag. And so I paid somebody $100 to drive me 30 minutes just to go pick up another bag and spend an entire paycheck just to get a $40 bag, which lasted 10 minutes. And I woke up the next day and was like, what am I doing? So at that time I was able to quit without, any sort of a program, as it were. But yeah, it was it's an interesting and intense period because it gave me a little bit of firsthand experience with what addiction sort of does, not only with you but with your close knit people.
Right, right. Yeah, I think I read in your bio that you sent that you were able to stop several times, but you just didn't
Hmm.
stay clean and sober. You would start
Hmm.
using again.
Hmm.
Okay, so you've stopped cocaine.
Hmm.
Where did you go then?
So I kept drinking and I kept abusing painkillers, and then it was, let me see, I guess it's years later. Like I ended up I climbed, it progressed, and the painkillers were getting stronger, and I was finding new connections, and people were introducing me to other people that had better stuff, and I was spending the money and all that sort of thing. But it was sort of like, I don't know, it took long enough that I was able to, I guess, not become a full-fledged addict and still focus on like music and some of the projects I worked on, and I was able to sort of balance things out. Um, and I remember the first time I did morphine, it was a pill, it was morphine sulfate. I had I don't know, like that was like a whole nother level for me. And the guy who was selling them to me, he warned me, he was like, yeah, this stuff will take hold of you, so just be careful. And then his prescription stopped, and he couldn't get them anymore. So I sort of had to quit at that time because he couldn't get them anymore. And then everything else wasn't doing it for me anymore. Vicodin wasn't doing it for me anymore. I could take 10 at that time, and I barely feel anything. So
Wow.
I sort of stopped, and I kept drinking, and then I started doing coke again, and that started to spiral a little bit out of control again. And I'd always kind of go and like do different drugs for long periods of time, and switch. I would like trade one addiction for another.
But at
And
that
then
point you hadn't done heroin, right?
no, yeah, I
Did you
hadn't.
have did you have this idea that I've heard before that, oh, heroin is something I will never do? That's something I don't want to go there. Did you have that viewpoint or not really?
Growing up, I when I was really little, I probably said that, but I think
Okay.
always when I was 9, I got my first guitar, and I started reading about my heroes like Jimmy Page and Slash, and all these guys that were heroin addicts that were guitar players. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking pretty early on, at a young age, like I want to do anything and everything that these guys did, from how they drink their tea to how they eat their hamburgers to whatever drug. I want to do everything so I can be as good as they are at guitar. And so I remember being really young, going, eventually I'm going to do hard drugs. Like there's no question about it, because one of the common, I don't think it's intentional, but a big mistake musicians make is they glorify the high in at the wrong time. You know what I mean? I think that like people always say my my worst day sober was better than my best day high, and I don't agree with that. I mean, I had a lot of good times when I was getting high. I had a lot of fun, but the problem is I as a real true addict, I just I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't stop. I couldn't control my behavior, and so yeah, I guess like when I talk about it now, when people ask me, I'm like, yeah, I mean, there were times that were absolutely fun and changed my perception and helped inspire different things. But I don't recommend anybody ever even, consider going down that road, because you become such a cliche. And I've never met anybody who just tried heroin and, you know,
And
it
didn't like it
stopped.
and
And
stopped. Yeah, I don't think we've talked to
yeah.
anybody either like that. Okay, but I kind of got you ahead of it a little bit because you weren't doing heroin. Like, okay, so you're done with high school. Obviously, you didn't do any college, right? Because you were doing music,
I did some
or
college
you did college. Okay,
later on, yeah, in my
okay.
early 20s. But yeah, I took some time to just kind of focus on music. Yeah.
Okay.
and write and do different things. I started traveling quite a bit, and yeah, I was hanging out with an older crowd too, because I had graduated. So, and I was able to get a job like at a regular place. I wasn't working under the table,
Right.
because the law is like once you're done with school, you can work as much as you want, provided that your parents are okay with it or whatever. But yeah, so I was hanging out with an older crowd. A lot of them were going to bars and partying and stuff like that. There were a lot of them were in college. So yeah, it like cocaine and alcohol kind of I'd go back and forth, and every once in a while I'd find somebody who had pain pills, and it'd just be like a one-time thing. But I guess around the time I was 17, I heard this band The Strokes for the first time, and as much as I love music, I was kind of nervous about considering music as a career, because it's really hard to get into. And even if you do get into it, like it's even harder to make a good living at it for a long period of time and not become disenchanted or, jaded by it. And there was just so many things I considered, but the Strokes were like the first modern band that made me want to do music professionally. So yeah, 17, I kind of took a step back from drinking so much and doing drugs all the time, and started to focus more seriously on not just being good at music, because at that time I was really good at music, but I wanted to be focus on making music my career. So yeah, once again I was able to put it down for a little while, but then
And
things started to go.
you started to be successful.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely.
It
um
said in your bio you were working with Gordon
Gordon Raphael,
Raphael.
yeah,
Yep.
producer for
And
the
then
Strokes.
you had a debut album starting off with a couple of good musicians.
Mhm. Yeah,
So what happened?
yeah, I was basically like, I worked really hard, and I did all through trial and error, learned how to do all these crazy, like, my mom always told me, if you're going to do something, just be the best at it. Not the best for everybody else, but the best that you yourself can possibly be. Do it with integrity, and,
Right.
make sure you enjoy it. So I would come up with all these unique and novel ways to get people to listen to my music or to, network with me. So basically what I did was I called the Strokes management office, and I scammed them into giving me their manager's email, and then Gordon's email, the producer, and just basically told them, look, I'm just a fan, but I have some questions about audio. And one thing led to another. And like after talking to him for like 2 years and pushing him, I got him to open a studio with me, which was pretty crazy. But it was a great time. And that's actually, it's interesting. That was when Gordon was sober. I think at the time he had been sober for 7 years, and he went through
Wow.
treatment. And yeah. And I wasn't, up until we had built the studio, I wasn't really partying. I was always focused on what I was doing in my career. So anyway, once we got the studio set up though, and people that I also owned a clothing store with a person I was in a relationship with at the time, my son's mother actually. And so we would have parties there and fashion shows, and like Gordon would go on DJ there, and everybody would want to meet him. So it got to be kind of a party hangout place. And of course, slowly but surely, I started to dip my toes in, and finally jump back in. And the kind of the breaking point was we had the studio for quite a while, and then I got arrested for public intoxication, assault on a police officer, and destruction of property. And in order to kind of keep his name clean, which I understood, Gordon just sort of backed off from the project, dropped out of it, kind of gave me the studio. And, I wasn't really in a place where I could take care of it by myself. So I just, in the end, I just let it go. But yeah, I guess
Did your girlfriend do drugs as well?
she did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Did that contribute to the autism that your son has? Do you know?
I can't say definitively, but I'm pretty sure, because
Okay.
I quit drinking and doing drugs while she was pregnant just to support her. but I caught her a couple times using and drinking while I was, like I get home early from work and find her passed out like with wine, and I freak out and wake her up. And it was a tumultuous
Yeah,
relationship, to say the least.
I
But
get
yeah,
it. And I know there's no way to really know. I was just curious.
yeah,
Okay. So now you got the studio all by yourself, not really equipped to run a studio and do drugs at the same time. So, and you got
yeah,
arrested. Oh yeah.
yes. So I got arrested, and then maybe a month later, Gordon flew where did he fly? I think he went to Berlin or something, and was like, "Yo, I'll be back in a couple weeks," and just sort of never came back. um, and I mean, it wasn't just that. He's a busy guy. I mean, he gets work all the time, all over the world. I mean, the Strokes are like the Beatles in some countries, especially Latin American countries. So like Gordon can go to Argentina because his picture was taken on the first Strokes album. They like used they did a band photo with him in it. He can go there, and like a lot of people recognize him. And so he gets a lot of work in places like that. It's really awesome. So kind of a combination of me acting up and, just landing really good jobs, separated us. And so I got depressed and I started drinking even more. And then my son's mother and I split up and got even more depressed. So the clothing store was actually legally mine. And I decided, I didn't want to do it anymore. And so did she. So I sold it. And I think I profited $30,000. And within like less than a year, I popped like all that money and turned it into morphine and other stuff, cocaine, and just, it was gone. So.
And how old were you then, Josh?
I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah. 22. So, yeah, I'll never forget how quickly the money went. Like I always used to think to myself, I don't see how, this person or that person lost all their money to drugs. But I mean, it goes really quick. And it's not just the drugs, it's the erratic, crazy decision making that you also get into when you're under the influence, and the things you do with your money. So I think that had a lot to do with it too. I was also really depressed about losing my, partner at the time. So I was taking, multiple women out on dates, trying to fill that void, and spending a lot of money on dinners and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. So what happened then? You spent a little time in jail, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've actually, been to prison. So, basically I went silent for a few years and just was in a weird place where I didn't really know what to do with myself. Well, my son's mother gets arrested and is basically told by the police, because her charges at the time were very serious, that she was no longer to be alone with him or, have custody of him or any children, essentially. So he got put into my care and custody full time. And I, I was so, I don't know, like serious about being a good father and being present in his life that, I just kind of stopped everything completely. Even, the music thing was like, I got to be serious about having a normal job and so on and so forth and what have you. But
How old was he at the time?
He was, I guess he was about 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, he was young. He's been with me up until recently, pretty much his whole life. And now he's with my mom, but it's just sort of a temporary thing. So we, it was him and I. My mom was helping me at that time too, though. She'd help me watch him and stuff. And I just kind of was in a place where I didn't really know what I was going to do or what kind of career I was going to pursue. But I can remember I was in 2 relationships, like sort of from the age of him at the age of 2 to the age of, I guess, 8 or 9, 2 different relationships. And between the first one I was in to the second one, they were both pretty serious and intense relationships. But between the first one to the second one, I couldn't stand not doing music, and I couldn't stand not partying. So again, I went, cold for a while, cold turkey, not doing anything. And then I sort of slowly started creeping back into certain things. And old patterns and behaviors. And then from the first relationship to the second, I was, partying and doing drugs again. And the girl that I was with at the time, the second girlfriend, she was from Mexico and had never really, she came from a wealthy, but conservative family. So she was kind of sheltered. She had never done drugs or hard drugs or drank or anything like that. She tried cocaine for the first time with me, and I thought she had done it. I assumed that it was something she had done, and she hadn't. But yeah, she liked it quite a bit, and so she she didn't become an addict or anything, but she definitely didn't mind for quite a while when I would do it, until she started to recognize that I had a problem. And in fact, she was one of the first people to tell me that, I should probably consider how I was acting, because I was exhibiting a lot of patterns and behaviors of an alcoholic and a drug addict. And, for years, I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, I've stopped plenty of times, and, I'm fine, and I'll stop again. And when the time's right, I'll quit forever. And, I didn't even realize at the time that an alcoholic or an addict isn't somebody that necessarily does something every day. It's more how they react to it, and whether or not they can stop when they start. So, and yeah, I embody the classic stereotypes of an alcoholic and addict. Once I start, I just cannot stop until I'm forced to.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast, or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com, or call us at 727-314-7080. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a 5-star review. Sometimes the hardest thing about getting someone into recovery is getting them to agree to treatment. Bobby Newman, a certified drug counselor with 30 years experience and an over 85% success rate as an interventionist, has created a series of 12 videos that you can use right now to learn every step to get your loved one to agree to treatment. Call 1-833-918-0008 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. So was your mother pretty much taking care of your son during this period of time?
No, I was still managing to keep it together. So I would drink at night when he'd go to sleep. And then I would space out my drug use and sort of keep it at a minimum, so that, I felt like I was still being a good father. The thing about the girl from Mexico was she was also a big music fan. And I got really, really serious about, she got her degree in finance and was working for this big financial, Fortune 500 company. But she basically quit that job to help support my music career and to get into the music business herself. So that was really when my personal success, I started to attain like my own personal success with music. However, that's like when my addiction really, really took off and hit its peak, got to be the worst. In 2016, I got like locked up for the first time, and yeah, that was a big eye-opening, game changer for me, because it changed my personality a lot. It changed how I looked at people and things a lot. I definitely became more bitter. I became less tolerant of a lot of things, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So when I got out, having all that negative energy bottled up inside and kind of feeling like it wasn't my fault, and, just sort of denying any accountability. I got out and went right back to drinking and doing drugs. However, I also had this incredible determination to make something of myself with my music. Like, I was, okay, I just, lost so much time in my life, and now, I don't have but a few years left. I have to do this, and I have to go out at full force. So yeah, like, I get out, and everything was going really, really well, and I got a record deal, and now I'm working with people that I like listened to when I was younger, that I, are like my heroes, and everything was going pretty reasonably well. However, a lot of those people were also using drugs, and were so socially, accepting of it. And yeah, so I figured, okay, well, they're doing it and they're successful and they're, selling millions of records of views on YouTube. Like, so can I. And yeah, I went from living in like a $2,000 a month condo to and having like 2 cars and all this equipment and gear, and have my son, most importantly my son, and a good supportive system around me that I could speak to just living out of hotels and doing pretty much doing all manner of criminal things to get my hands on drugs. And it was a like I'll never forget. I was in this hotel one time a couple of years ago in Austin, Texas, with another friend, and I was buying an ounce of heroin from this guy, and the guy that was with me was listening, and one of my songs was on the radio in the hotel, and he goes, "Isn't this you?" And I go looked up. I didn't even know what to do. I was so overwhelmed. I started crying. I was like, "Yeah." And the guy who was doing the transaction goes, "From musician to drug, peddler, whatever he called me." Yeah. So, I mean, I got what I deserved because I didn't lose anything. I gave it away. I gave it away happily without like any remorse. But, yeah, I mean,
So did that like end your music career? I mean, did it just...
the label basically contacted me and said, "Look, we're suspending your contract. Get yourself well."
Okay.
And of course, at the time, I wasn't having it. I was like, "I don't need to get myself well. I'm fine."
And that was in 2020?
It was 2019. Yeah,
2019? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure that at this point, if I contacted them, they'd have to there'd have to be some dialogue for quite an extended period of time before they consider it, because I got to be good friends with the owner of the label. But I just, there's a lot of things I want to do and focus my energy on with regard to music. But ever since I got into, I actually am in the program, and it's changed my life so much. And it's fascinating because I watch all these things now, these psychologists and psychiatrists, they talk about how, like one in particular that struck me was this guy said that for years as a psychiatrist and a psychologist, he didn't support AA or NA because there was no science that backed it up. There was nothing that and then he conducted a study with like 200 people and found that not only was it the most effective thing, it has the highest rate of success, or one of the highest rates of success with regard to like every other sort of program that people try to do to quit. And he was like, "Yeah, like I stand corrected. I still don't know how it works. Nobody does. It's like there's no scientific evidence that."
Well, yeah, don't get me started. I mean, typically psychiatrists and psychologists don't really put a lot of credence into God or religion or this man as a spiritual being. So we won't even go there. But before you go too much into your rehab, what was your point of no return? What was the point at which you said, "Okay, I really have to get my life together"? Because you'd kind of sort of been skating along. You could kind of quit when you wanted to quit, but then you'd come back to it. So what was the point where you finally said, "I got to stop"?
So, music was gone, and I realized I had given it away. That was one of the first things that was like, man, the girl from Mexico left, and she took pretty much everything that belonged to her and everything that we had bought together, which I couldn't blame her. Like I said, I was living in and out of hotels. I got locked up again. This time I spent quite a significant amount of time away. And then when I got out, I went right back at it, and just, it's funny because there was so many things. I have so many crazy stories, but in August, the past year, 2021, my brother died of a fentanyl overdose. And I'll never forget I hadn't seen my son's mother, in almost 10 years. And I'm in this really crappy abandoned apartment, selling somebody drugs and, all manner of other illegal things. And my ex walks in and I'm like, what the F are you doing here? And she's like, I've got bad news. And I'm like, what? And she's like, your brother died. And I just go, I can swear, right? I can swear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Those my exact words were, get the fuck out of here. And I said, what do you really want? She goes, I'm not kidding. And I said, what? She goes, they think it's an overdose. So immediately I started crying and I, broke down. Everybody there was like, okay. I was like, no. And she goes, is there anything I can do? And I go, yes, there is. I go, you can get the fuck out of here. And don't you ever come back. I don't ever want to see you again. I don't ever want to hear you again. Don't ever think it's appropriate to tell me about my relatives dying. I don't care about you. It doesn't matter what happens to you. Like, for me, you're already gone and dead. And I really, really, really find it so completely depressing and disappointing that it's you that told me that he died. So she was trying to sort of argue with me and wanted to stay and be supportive. So I actually, this isn't funny, but I pulled a gun out. I was like, if you don't get out, I'm going to shoot you in the head and bury you in the front yard. And that'll be how you die. So that's how kind of, crazy I had gotten. Now, of course I was upset and I wouldn't have really done that. But so for the next 2 weeks, late August into September, I just went nuts. I did anything and everything you can imagine, and had almost no remorse for it, because in my mind, one of my closest, my closest friend growing up, was dead and died from the same thing that was killing me. And, the last time I spoke to my brother, it was really terrible. We had a fight, and, those were the last moments I shared with him. Was literally almost a fist fight. The only reason why we didn't end up fist fighting was because the time before that we'd gotten into a fist fight and he won. So this time I pulled out some brass knuckles to scare him. And so he sort of stepped back, but I was trying to intimidate him and make him feel bad. And the argument was over who's a better addict. He was yelling. He was like, you had a job and a career in music and you got all these things. And now look at you, you're a loser and you sleep on my couch. And, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm having fun doing it. And I was like, what about you? You're miserable at your job. And just because you have an apartment, it's a shithole and your car barely starts. And, at least I have fun and I do what I want. And so there was that. And it was just like, yeah, not a good way to end things. That guilt really, really just, it was poisoning me. So I went crazy, like I said, and finally got to this place where I looked at my life this one day. It was September 31st, 2021. I borrowed a friend's car who was in jail. Do you want me to tell this part, or should I?
I want you to tell it, but I want you to know that September only has 30 days.
Oh, was it the 30th then? Okay, yeah. I just know that the next day was the 1st of October.
Understood.
It does have 30 days, right? It was definitely the 30th then, because October 1st is my sobriety date. But yeah, a friend of mine had gone to jail and he was like, hey, you can go to my house and borrow my car for a couple of days. Well, I went and got it, and I've just filled it to the brim with all kinds of bad things, stolen things, drugs, anything and everything, and was just going completely nuts. I was literally having a nervous breakdown and about to just self-implode, and it spiraled out of control. And so I pulled up to this house. I just dropped off another friend at the methadone clinic, and I pulled up to this house, and I remember thinking I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My family won't speak to me. My brother's dead, and I didn't get to go to the funeral because if I went high, that would be inappropriate. And if I showed up dope sick, that would be inappropriate. So I couldn't even, and I didn't want to see him in a coffin anyway. It's, I'm not really good with funerals. So it was really, I couldn't say goodbye to him. My last words to him were, fuck you. I hope you die miserable or something like that. It was really terrible. It was just, my son, who's never done anything wrong to me, has always been really, he's been good to me always, no matter what. I, you know, I was hurting him, and it just,
I get it.
so yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had a gun, and I was gonna, another thing, a friend of mine who was supposed to be a good friend, who was also a heroin addict, stabbed me 6 times, to try to steal money. I had basically stolen $3,000, and he wanted it for drugs.
Oh my
So
God.
he stabbed me 6 times. There's a scar right
Wow.
there,
Oh my
and my
God.
hand. Yeah, all for money, for drugs. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember thinking, okay, so like one of my good friends, I thought was a good friend, stabbed me. My brother's dead. My son, who's just the sweetest person, I can't, continue to hurt. And every time I see him, he's always so happy to see me. He doesn't see this person who's hurting him and destroying his life. He just sees, so yeah, I had the gun, and I was going to shoot myself, but I was not going to die sober. So did one last hit of heroin, and I did some meth. And it was a high point 380. And if you know anything about guns, high points are extremely crappy guns. They're very unpredictable. They get jammed a lot. They're terrible. So I pick up the gun, and it goes off and whizzes right past my ear. And I actually have like a scar on my ear now. It's like where it just kind of grazed my ear. And I remember thinking, holy shit, I don't want to do that anymore. I changed my mind. But from the adrenaline to the high to everything else and being overwhelmed, right after that, I passed out, and I woke up with cops knocking on the window. And I'm like, oh, no, not again. This is probably the 20th time I've been arrested in the last, who knows how many years. I'm now on probation because I signed for probation a few years ago for burglary and robbery. And, and the only reason why I got probation was because of COVID. And like so the cops are knocking at the door, and they pull me out, and they put me in cuffs immediately. And they're like, what were you doing? And I just didn't say anything. I was like, man, just take me to jail. I don't. He was like, what's your name? So I tell him, and he looks me up. He's like, wow. He's like, yeah, you're most definitely going back, and probably going to stay there for a while now. And he was like, what, like, before I take you, what were you doing? And I go, I was going to kill myself. And he goes, why? And I go, because I'm a junkie, and I'm alone, and I don't have anybody, and my brother just died, and I feel like I don't have much to live for. I don't want to be alive anymore. I'm just done. I'm over everything. But I can't do that now. So if you could just take me to jail so I can sleep and, wake up and hang myself there, that'd be cool. And he was like, he just kind of looked at me, and I'll never forget, he had this look, like it was very, not sincere, but just, it was an intense look. Like thinking back now, I feel like he felt something. He knew that I was being genuine with my answers, and I think he could really feel the pain I was in. Now, the fact that he had mercy was really a God thing, because I still don't feel I deserved grace or mercy. But he goes, is there anybody I can call to verify this information? I go, you want to call and verify that I just tried to shoot myself in the head? Because no, I just want to know if I can call somebody to ask about your brother and see about your mental state. And I mean, you can call my mom, but she's probably so tired of hearing from the police now that she'll probably hang up on you. And it's usually what she does now when police call. And so he calls her, and he comes back, and he doesn't say anything. He just puts me in the back of the car. So I'm thinking, I'm just, going to jail, back to prison, and that'll be that. But then all of a sudden, like this weird feeling comes over me, and my whole life sort of, like, it didn't flash in front of my eyes, but my whole life came to mind. And I remember thinking, that's just not enough. Like, that can't be it. I was almost there, and that was it. Like, and then I got, went to jail and that's my life for however long. Like, it would have definitely been a long time had he taken me in and charged me. Right. And I just, all of a sudden, this feeling came over me, and I thought, I can't do this. And I started praying, which is weird because I hadn't prayed in like 10 years. And I just said, okay, look, I know this is wrong and stupid, and it's probably not going to work. But if you somehow, by some divine miracle, get me out of this, I swear I will get myself right. I'll change. I'll get clean. I'll make a real, true, honest effort, and I will do the right thing. I'll be open and honest about everything, and I'll make sure that, like, and I'm like, trying to barter and make a deal with God. And all of a sudden, we pull up to this building, and I'm like, where are we? And he goes, we're at the South Vista Hospital. And I go, why are we here? And he goes, well, you got to get a psyche eval because you tried to kill yourself. And I go, oh, well, so when do I go to jail? He goes, I'm not taking you to jail. I don't think you need jail. I think you need help. He goes, so I recommend you get it. He goes, because you have family that really love and care about you and are worried about you. And he was like, but let me tell you something too. If I ever see you out here again like this, I'll take you in and I'll charge you with I'll charge you for jaywalking and, every little charge that I can. I will make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison, if you screw me over on this. So I didn't know what to do. This was kind of a rare occurrence. Well, at this point in time, I just broke down in front of this grown man police officer and started crying. And I'll never forget. I didn't say thank you. I just said, I'm sorry. And he was like, don't tell me you're sorry. Tell your mom. So I went in and I detoxed for 3 days. And I called my mom, and I hadn't spoken to her in like 2 years practically. And so, we talked about my brother and everything. And that was kind of how recovery really started. Before I would quit things, but I would do something else. There was always something sort of like masking or substituting. This has been the only substitute I have now is, the meetings and stuff. So.
Well, you have been clean and sober for 6 months. I counted it up, in excess of 6 months. And that, I would imagine, we've talked to people who've been clean and sober for like 30 years. And I don't know that they would tell me that it gets easier, but I would imagine that it probably gets somewhat easier as the years go by. So the fact that you're 6 months, probably not the easiest 6 months that you've gone through, but you know what? You're clean and sober, and you're now in a position to be, a great dad to your son and a great son to your mom. So, I mean, well done,
and
you.
Sorry? A good husband too. The funny thing about this is, through all of this, the one thing I did not pay attention to or listen to was, everybody was like, be celibate for a while, maybe 6 months to a year. And I was like, I am not doing that. But I met this girl this woman. She's incredible. We've been together since November 23rd. I mean, we started dating officially, I guess in December, but we met November 23rd for our first date, and we've been inseparable ever since. And so, 2 weeks ago, I asked her to marry me, which is totally crazy.
Wow.
I mean, she said,
congratulations.
The thing of it is, though, is her family and, just everything that I have going on right now, I think is a result of just, really putting good energy into things and wanting to, karma's not so spiritual or so like metaphysical as people think. It's like, if you want to look at it from a scientific or a philosophical, like a social philosophical point of view, it's like, if you're in a good mood, or if you put out good, energy, if you're nice to people, or if you just try your hardest to be, a good person with integrity, I think it resonates with people, and they see that and they want to do good things for you. So, my biggest thing is, I'm still very flawed. I'm still kind of an asshole from time to time.
You're not perfect? Oh my God. Yeah. How did you get on this podcast? We only put perfect people on the podcast. Just kidding, Josh.
But I think that the biggest thing, the secret to sobriety for me has been this. I have been a heroin addict for years. So for anybody to trust me with any decision, let alone myself, to make any decision would be so irresponsible, because how can you trust a heroin addict to do anything? What I did was I realized I will never be able to quit because I'm a heroin addict. I can't really do anything because of that. However, I surrendered myself to something greater than myself and just said, okay, I will let you take the wheel now, and whatever it is that is your will, I will do. If I feel it in my heart, that's what I do. And the biggest thing that's come with that is just honesty. I think if you're honest with people about everything, even if it's a little bit hurtful, not mean, but even if it hurts their feelings, I think that ultimately, if you can keep honesty and integrity, people will want to do good things for you. So I met this girl, and I was just, since our first date, I said, listen, she ordered wine with dinner. I said, I can't drink. And she goes, oh, why not? And I go, well, because I'm either really good at it or I'm really bad at it. I haven't figured that out yet. So I proceeded to tell her just everything. It was the craziest thing. I hadn't been intimate or even romantic with anybody in such a, long time, or for me, a long time. Like in a very clean and innocent way, that is, where I was trying to just get to know somebody. I just like vented to her for like 2 hours about what I had been through over the last couple of years. And she was pretty shocked and amazed, but I think the honesty kind of resonated with her because she's still here. And yeah, she happily agreed to marry me. So she's
I
either,
love it.
yeah, she might be crazy though, too. You never.
I don't think so.
No.
I think we have to believe that people can change and that people can get better. And I think that you're a perfect example of that. And yeah, and obviously she can see that. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling. But just to live for like basically 6 years in such a dark place, not only spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, and then 6 months, just everything's completely like, I've never been so sure about loving someone in my entire life. I know without any doubts in my mind that not only do I love her, but I want to spend my life with her. That's just being honest with myself. I think that's important.
I was going to say that because you were talking about being honest with other people, but I think initially it starts with yourself and being honest with yourself. And you did that,
Yeah.
and you confronted that and you came through that. And I think that that's huge. And that's kind of like the basis. And then you can move from there and start being honest with other people. I get that. I
Yeah.
understand that.
Well, the other thing is that her parents are really like, they're very supportive of our relationship. They're supportive of me. They help me with so much. They're incredible people. I can't always get a read on them, which kind of freaks me out because I read everybody pretty well. Being sort of a narcissist and a bit of a manipulative person. Before I like, that's one of the first things I do. I try to size people up. But I think the reason why I can't, they just they do what they feel is good. And I think the main difference between people from before is that people from before always had an agenda and a motive, and they just kind of seek out what is good and what is going to work for them and for the situation, and that's why I feel incredibly, grateful to be a part of her life and their life, because that's just one of those things that's been really rewarding. And I get to be in my son's life. I get to be in my mom's life. People trust me now with money, and their car and their, and it was so simple. I wish I could have started this a long time ago, because it's only been 6 months. I went through like, almost a decade of hell just for nothing. It was, and I mean, nothing is for nothing, but it was, I think if people, it's such a driving force in my life, and it's so positive. I feel like even people that aren't addicts or alcoholics can apply these principles to their life, because it's a great thing that really helps give you clarity, and helps you practice patience and tolerance and kindness and understanding. And it's just, the big part of it too that really gets me feeling good is the service work. Be of service to others, step outside of yourself.
Yep.
And I
It's
think
huge.
that's great. Yeah. I focused on myself for years,
Mm-hmm.
and it never did me any good.
Right.
So,
Well, I applaud you for being clean and sober. I really want to thank you for sharing your story today. It's honest, it's real. I think that it will resonate with people who either are themselves going through a similar situation or have a loved one with a similar situation. So personally, I want to thank you, Josh, for taking the time to talk to us today and being willing to share everything. And congratulations on getting married. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening today and watching today. Josh's story, I think, is so real. It is so much like so many young people and even older people who become addicted and eventually become clean and sober. He's new in his sobriety, but he's doing well and his life is on an upturn. And if you or someone you know is addicted, it can happen for you too. The first step is the very hardest, and that is to, first of all, realize that you need help and then reach out for it. So it's our hope that you do that. We'll be back again next week with an interview, and thank you once again for listening and watching.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.